I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First thing on the agenda here, we're going to approve the minutes of November 21st, our last meeting. And Sandy sent them out. I don't know if you had any input, Sandy, but does anybody on the council have any input or additions or corrections? Otherwise, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of November 21st, 2020. Becky seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so that's. And first on the agenda here is the community corrections additional appropriation. That was discussed. Go ahead. Introduce yourself to the public.
Wyatt Madden, Director of Community Corrections.
So, I don't know, do you have additional information, or we had the numbers and stuff we discussed last time? I thought you have additional information for us.
Do you have anything?
Well, I wasn't here the last one, so I don't know. In addition, I mean, I think from the board, I mean, they have a prosecutor and also advisory board chair. Just reviewing the statute, I think we as an advisory board have to approve the spending of those funds. So if that's the decision of the council, then we're going to have to call an additional board meeting to address that issue and approve it. Looking at the statute, and you can seek guidance from county attorney, but to me, reading the statute, the advisory board has to approve the spending of those correction funds. So if you as a council says, in order to fund these positions, it has to come from that CD, it has to be cash, then we as a board have to convene and approve that.
Okay. Well, then we may not be able to make a motion tonight here, because I think that's what we said, that, you know, the council has control of the money. We're asking you to cash it in. So you should have probably had your meeting then prior to this. Because then
I wasn't aware that the council had already made that decision.
We talked about it last Monday we talked about it. And then even at that point, we didn't think there was any issue with it, so.
Well, actually, this was from the meeting on the 8th that we said we needed an additional. You said you needed another one, so it took us 2 weeks to get to this point.
Right. But at that meeting, it was approved for, or we're not cashing it in. That was the stance.
Right. And this is for this year. Now, when we go into January, that we have to do another additional for next year because we don't have 2 extra people in next year's budget.
Well, and that CD won't pay for an entire year for 2 people either.
I don't even know how much your CD's for, but.
So, I mean, there has to be some discussion on how it's gonna be funded between the CD running out and any additional tax revenue being generated to help pay for it.
Because the way I understand, you haven't hired anybody, an additional one yet, have you?
No.
So, I mean, we haven't spent anything yet.
I mean, otherwise, I don't know how we can, anybody got any comments on it, or?
Yes,
I mean,
we
I don't
did.
know, I thought we had an agreement, a kind of a verbal agreement that we would do it this way to get, because we had this meeting for this particular purpose.
Right.
You know, so now, you know, it doesn't seem like we're on the same page here. But I thought that was, you know, 2 weeks ago, then we thought, you know, we held this meeting to be able for you to hire someone tomorrow morning. Otherwise, you know, we wouldn't have done this meeting. So I don't know, I mean, I guess we're on this different wavelength here, so.
So is there any way that we could approve it pending the advisory board's decision, if that is indeed the way the statute needs to, the chain of command, I guess, needs to go, the chain of action?
So I think we get conflicting because State Board of Accounts tells me the opposite. You guys can advise, but we have to budget. So I get conflicting.
But it's a
Answers.
pretty straightforward Indiana statute that says, I mean, I've got it right here. It says, it's Indiana Code 11-12-212. A community corrections fund is established in each community having a community corrections program. The fund shall be administered by the Community Corrections Advisory Board in accordance with these rules adopted under subsection C. You look at subsection C, the department shall adopt rules under Indiana Code 422.2 governing the following, and then administration by Community Corrections Advisory Board of Community Corrections Funds and the Community Corrections Home Detention Fund, including criteria for expenditures from the funds.
Well-
So that's pretty straightforward.
What is a home detention fund versus is that a user fee based fund, like Project Income is?
It says Community Corrections Fund and the Community Corrections Home Detention Fund. It includes both. So I mean, we haven't had a board meeting. I'm not saying we won't approve it. We just have to follow the code and have that additional step. And we can ask for a special meeting in like 48 hours or something like that. So we could get it done this week, but it's my position that that's something the board has to do.
Okay, well, I mean, that was, like I said, that we had 2 weeks to do that. It's kind of, it falls in your court, I guess. We can approve it, with Councilman,
Right.
or Councilwoman, I guess I should say here, what she suggested, and we can do it that way, and then you can have a special, you can report it, and if you have to have a special meeting, then, I mean, as far as getting this officer, I thought that was the critical thing here.
It is.
I mean, with the commissioners, I sat in on the commissioners meeting, that's exactly what they said there, that, we would find a way of funding it, and we talked about it then, and said this CD would probably have to be cash, that's our only source of income.
Mhm.
So, I don't know if there's anyone else have any discussion, or otherwise I think we
I
just,
was under the same assumption because I thought that was supposed to carry me through most of the year or a good portion of next year until, when does CNR tax, when do we start the,
When the building's finished.
just when it's finished, we were hoping by the end of next year. So I thought we were hoping that CNR would hopefully be able to kick in. I thought that's what we had discussed.
I don't think there'll be enough money in that CD to carry you through that, so there needs to be a discussion about how those positions will be funded if it runs out until the CNR tax kicks in.
We mentioned the increased user fees would be part of it. Just to see what your cash flow, your cash balance looks like as the year goes on. I mean, I won't be here at that time, but that's where our discussion pretty well took us.
Yeah.
That it wouldn't, what was it, enough to fund half a position to increase user fees like that?
It's kind of unclear because we don't know how many people we're gonna have in work release in the new building, and then, there's the issue of do people pay on time.
Sure.
any other discussion, Alex, you sit on that board, you got any?
So would you get the CNR tax about May? Is that what you're thinking?
We get CNR tax every month.
Well, I mean, where they could use it. for-
Well, the thing is the building won't be finished, and you're supposed to you're supposed to finish your building project and then start budgeting CNR tax.
So, like Anthony said, definitely wouldn't.
Because that would include the remodel of the old jail as well, right?
Yeah, our building project's not probably gonna be done until 24.
I'd be budgeting 20.
So we thought we'd get to 25 and start using the money.
So longer than I
Now, I know Megan did kind of budget a few things in CNR before we realized the rule, because our Lily has some stuff in it. There's a new maintenance part-time in it. When she knew Jerry was gonna be leaving, so she wanted to get somebody on. So that's in the next year budget in CNR. So we're already using it, and we shouldn't be, but we are.
Well, that's something I think we'd have to look at, and, I thought these discussions were gonna be in January, when we, you were, because we have to have again, another special meeting to keep these people on board here, the first of the month. So, we're gonna have to use that CD, to get this to float until we can find a solution for the rest of it. I mean, that was my understanding. I don't know, maybe anyone else had a different understanding. Everybody's shaking their head, yes, it seems like, so. I mean, I don't know, if we can pass this tonight, and pending that you come up with the money, the cash.
Okay.
Otherwise, I don't, unless you've got that cash in your account. So, I'm not trying to be difficult. I
Yeah, no, I
guess you
understand.
took me by surprise tonight, really. Complete surprise, because I thought we had this worked out. So, I don't know, anybody want to put a motion out there on the table that
I move that we approve, okay, what's the amount for the additional appropriations, Sandy? Do you have the total?
6,908, 6,908.
Okay, I move that we approve the additional appropriation of $6,908 from the project income account pending the advisory board action.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, may I have a second? I'll second it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Is that him?
No, it's
It
me.
was you.
Anyone opposed? Okay. That's the discussion I had for you tonight.
I just want to clarify, that's 5,812 for the officer, $1,096 for the benefits. And this would get us through,
For a total of $6,908.
That's for the second officer?
that's for the second officer. The first one's already been approved,
Mhm.
that he could have hired on the,
I thought-
Election day, whatever that was,
I
February
think it's just, that there's been other openings, we're hiring for the other openings that came up.
Yeah, we have 7 interviews so far this week.
I think we'll have to have discussions to see how this is gonna, if they have the board meeting.
Yeah.
And then I think we'll have to have some discussions here on how we're gonna finance this moving forward.
I agree.
So, but my intent or my thought was we were gonna use that CDF first, and then later in the year, we would see what we have to do.
um,
That's all
I will need a salary ordinance to be able to pay this person if they do get him hired. It's $1,627.27 bi-weekly. To be hired on or after November 29th, holiday pay will be paid at the employee handbook,
I'm gonna send an email.
or the handbook.
So we can approve that tonight.
I'll be able to.
It'll still be pending, so,
Both of them pending.
so you guys will let me know whenever you have your meeting.
Yeah, we're
I'll
gonna
send
get
an
it
email.
hopefully end of the week.
So does someone want to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
So the second, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That's really all I have. That's why, thank you.
Good, thanks.
Okay, Mary, are you ready, for the, to speak about the regional sewer district? It's, date.
Yeah, just want to give you an update on, what we've done over the last couple of weeks and what our next steps are. At last Monday's commissioners meeting on the 21st, they did approve, Cart Pizza's contract for the phase 1 services. And we have already started, laying out the survey limits, for the survey team to get started on that. They should have the bud calls, which is we have to call in probably existing utilities to be marked in the areas. That we have to give those agencies a minimum of 2 weeks to do that before we come out and survey. All of those bud calls should be completed by the end of this week. So it'll be about 3 weeks before you'll start seeing our crews out here actually doing the survey work, but we're in the process of getting that started. They will, as they go through surveying, they will put door hangers in each of the property owners. Of course, everybody's received letters and everything by now, so they know what's going on in general. But they'll have a letter that will be put in there that says, you know, this is who's out here, this is what we're doing. If you have any questions, you know, it'll list my name and number for them to contact me, as well as Nick, because he's the representative for the county's pursuit of this. So if they have any concerns or issues with people traipsing through their yard, there will be a notification for them with contact information on that. We started the PER process. That survey limit is the first stage of that preliminary engineering report process. We will be looking at, last week I drove east out on 56, west on Hayesville Road, and up and down Portersville Road and 231 to look at possibility of how far away from that immediate congested area we'll be able to go to get additional services. Basically, we're looking at, if you've got a big gap, how many miles of sewer line do we have to put in to connect X amount of people? And looking at those ratios helps us decide just how far outside of that immediate congested area that we can pick up. I'll be doing the same thing next Monday for Portersville area and going through that process over there as well. At Monday's commissioners meeting, in addition to approving the contract, they also passed the resolution that allows us to submit the IDEM petition for the commencement of a regional sewer board. That included a requirement that we do mail letters of notifications to all property owners that we reasonably at this point think would be able to be hooked up to the system. So we did have quite a bit of public show up. I want to say maybe 20 or 30 people. And overall, the feedback was very positive. I think out of that group, we had one person who does not want to have any type of public utility. They have well water, and other than that, everybody else seemed very receptive in a positive manner to the project. So that was good. Today, we met with Jasper this morning, or this afternoon, I guess at 1 o'clock. I will copy all of you on the meeting minutes from that meeting when I get them put together later this week, just for your information if you want to read through them. But in general, the big takeaways from today's meeting is that Jasper has approved the proposal for Midwestern Engineers to do their portion of the preliminary engineering report. And Midwestern is getting started. We talked about a due date of March 15th for that report. As we go through the preliminary engineering report process, Clark Dietz will coordinate information back and forth from Midwestern to make sure that we are both getting as much up-to-date information from each other's report as possible as we go through that process. We also plan to have monthly progress meetings, again, to make sure that our projects are running parallel with each other and on track. Those meetings will include the representatives from Jasper, our small committee group that the commissioners had selected for the regional sewer district, as well as Midwestern, a representative from Midwestern Engineers. And those are planned for the first Tuesday of every month at 1 o'clock in the first floor conference room. And one question, Sandy, can you?
Can I schedule them?
Yes.
When is that gonna start? Next in
January 3rd. Mhm. And if you have a conflict, just let me know. Like if there's already something scheduled, let me know and we can move it around. But ideally, that's when we would like to do it. If it's available.
How long were your meetings gonna last? About an hour?
About an hour. Next steps are, to actually submit the item petition. The only couple items we need to finalize that is the meeting minutes from the commissioners meeting on the 21st, where they did the resolution, need to be approved. So that'll happen at the December 5th meeting, correct, Sandy?
I don't have that agenda with me, but, I think we're on December 5th.
Yeah, so as soon as those are approved, I think everything will be together. The last two remaining items other than that are our draft of our ordinances and bylaws. We did another final review of those at 2:00 today. And I'm meeting with Nick, since not more than one commissioner can be in the same place at the same time. I'm doing a second review of those immediately following this meeting to go through that. And everybody's comments will get marked up, and the final draft of the bylaws and the ordinances will be sent out to all of you all by the end of this week with all of those comments on it. So if there's anything any of you all looked at and saw in there that you have questions about, feel free to ask me now or contact me, email or phone, please, before Friday, because like I said, we're going to finalize those at the end of this week. They do not get voted on for final approval until after the district is officially formed. This still is a draft form that we sent to IDEM, so technically there will be a chance to make some changes still. The financial advising contract is the next, I guess, big thing that would directly concern you all. That is with Baker, the commissioners have chosen Baker and Tilly, which we've used in the past. That will be a $15,000 not to exceed contract. I provided the draft of that to Greg for his legal review. And he has requested a change to the terms. So I got that from him today. I'll get that back to Baker and Tilly first thing tomorrow morning. And as soon as those changes are made, I will send that out via email to all of you all. Our intent is that the commissioners are going to approve that contract at the December 5th meeting, pending council's approval. And so at the December 12th council meeting, I will be here to discuss the details of that contract. Like I said, you'll have a draft emailed to you beforehand. Any questions?
What did you find out on the people that want to pay but have a functioning septic and then they don't want to hook up right away? Did you find out the answer?
I do not have an answer for that yet, no. I have sent an email to SRF, but I don't have an answer back.
Mary, the $15,000 for Baker Tilly, how did that number come up? Or how, did they suggest that number? You think, will that be sufficient, you think, to do what we need to do?
So similar to at the beginning of this process with us, when we didn't know exactly what it was gonna look like, we initially did an not to exceed contract, and then we did a lump sum once we kind of had all the parties in place. Baker and Tilly usually follows the same process, and so that $15,000 not to exceed is, was their recommendation to start with. That's pretty common for them at this process. And that will be used for the process from now until April of 2023, which is the point where we will know from the funding agencies exactly what our package looks like. That will allow Baker and Tilly to provide some financial information for the preliminary engineering report, as well as start the early coordination with the funding agencies. And then in April, June, or May, June, when we know for sure what that package looks like and they know exactly what their scope of work is, they'll revisit that 15,000 and see how much they have left, exactly what they need to do, and at that point, you would have a detailed scope of work for everything else that needs to be done and a final price.
Okay, I think a question came up the last meeting, that $15,000, if we use ARP fund money, ARPA fund money, can that be reimbursed?
Mhm.
Or- Okay. I mean, that,
I didn't think you could use a grant to fund a grant though.
You're not, I don't know, it's no, their services are no different than ours, they're just professional services for the project.
So, but the problem is if we get that money back in 24, we have to have it spent by the end of 24 or we get it back. Because ARPA money has to be committed by the end of 24, spent by the end of 26.
Right.
So if this process, if we don't get that SRF money back, I thought that's why we didn't really want to use that ARPA money.
I shouldn't say, it is not truly a reimbursement, because basically it's going to your match, so it counts towards those funds. You're not going to exceed your match in expenses where they're actually going to repay you. It would be, SRF would consider it credit towards whatever your match is for that program. Like I said, just like all of our fees are and all the planning and all of that is that you're using the ARPA money for. It's for the project.
I'm just afraid we're gonna get to the end of 2024 and we're gonna have ARPA money sitting there that we didn't do anything with. And we're gonna have to get it back.
well, that's over the weekend. That's what I was thinking of too. Why, we're paying, like you're saying, we're paying professional services, we're paying those out of ARP funds.
Mhm.
And then, last meeting, we decided to advertise out of edit.
Edit for the,
So that's why I was a little confused and, but I mean, it seems like we would want to spend that money first, instead of using lit money.
Okay, I would think you'd want to use ARP funds for this, because I understand what you're saying, but the reality is for all of this, they're not gonna cut you a check, like with that $30,000 grant where you actually got truly reimbursed. That's not gonna happen, because you've got to match a certain percentage.
so it's just gonna be a wash of,
It's gonna count towards your match, right? But
so we're
it's
still spending.
correct, it is still spent money.
That makes sense. Because we're not actually getting reimbursed, it just goes into a pool that is gonna be the matching funds.
Right. You get credit for the fact that you spent it towards this project.
So we're still spending.
So when they come back and they say it's, total project is 18 million, and between the, forgivable principal and USDA and all of these other sources, the county's portion of that is 3.5 million. Say that's what they say your match is. Then they look at it and say, what have you spent today? Everything that you've spent from our services from the very beginning that you have not already been reimbursed for, so not that 30,000.
Right, I get it.
Everything else, the contract that we just finalized last week, Baker Tilly, all of that adds up and is credited to that 3.5 million or whatever that number is.
Well, that makes more sense. It didn't make sense the other way because it was like, I kept thinking we're gonna get money back.
Right. Well, and that
And we're not.
SRF lists it as it's all fully reimbursable, is how they say it. But the reality is that you only actually get a check back if you spend more than your match requires.
And I don't know if we would change, what we did last meeting, because we have already advertised it.
Now, if we use ARPA money, there's probably some ARPA money in the regional sewer district. That one, because you didn't go all the way to 1.5 or
Right.
whatever. I mean, there's probably some in there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, that it's $1.6 million that we had set aside for the sewer district. And I think this is $1.5 million, something like that.
One.
It's right under 1.5.
Yeah.
So I didn't know.
But I know Brent thought it was 1.5, so anyway.
if it's more, to use the ARP funds up, it's, so we don't like saying that we don't use them.
We just don't want to be stuck with some at the end. We want to have it done.
Okay, so then do we need to appropriate the 15,000? If we just take it out of the ARPA? Which is
Yeah, if we take it out of the ARPA, we don't need this because it's already appropriated.
Appropriated, I think, early on.
Let's do that.
So, but
So if that's
a
the case, the commissioners could actually approve it at their meeting on the 5th, is that correct?
See, we tried to do something else with ARPA and we were told you can't do that because you're reimbursing a grant with a grant.
probably the park and rec up there.
Might have been that.
That's where we ran into that trouble.
You're exactly right.
Oh, yeah, because that is a reimbursable grant.
And the SRF program is funded through ARPA already. So I mean, like, I think it has to do too with what funds you're using and where they're coming from. SRF, all of the forgivable principal and all of that has been infused by the American Rescue Plan. So
I think I was under the impression we were going to get money back.
Yeah.
And that's where we were trying to protect.
I think there's a very slim chance that that's going to happen. But my hope is that, I mean, like I said, I'm hoping that we're going to get well more than just 50%.
I think the word reimbursable is what kind of throws you.
It's definitely not the most ideal verbiage for that
Right.
description.
I mean, the meeting this afternoon was good, I think, with the city. I hope, at least we know they're on board, they're trying to do everything they can, so. That's all the questions I had. I don't know if anybody else had anything for Mary. She's willing to come back whenever, like you say, at the time, so. Otherwise, I don't have anything. Mary, thanks for coming up.
And as soon as I get the answer to that back from SRF, I'll email it out to y'all.
I just curious.
So just real quick, when you would need to come back on the 12th if they use the ARPA funds for the Clark Deeds contract, is that correct?
Correct.
For the Baker Tilly.
For the Baker
For Baker Tilly.
That's correct. It's already appropriated.
I just want to make sure for your sake.
So
If y'all want me to come back on the 12th, I can. There won't be a whole lot more moving until, there won't be a whole lot of updates until probably January for our next meeting with Jasper. So it's just up to you all. If you want me to come back on the 12th, regardless, I will. Otherwise, I'll be back the meeting after our meeting with Jasper in January. When is y'all's meeting? January?
I haven't said it yet.
Okay, so whenever y'all's meeting is in January, I'll be at that one. Does that work?
do we have to make a motion to change that, or
Mhm.
so we just let the commissioners sign that contract? So, okay, that's really all. Mary, thanks.
I appreciate it.
Safe trip back.
Thank you.
Yeah, we don't need that addition. I did that for the December 12th meeting. It's already going to be in the paper, but we'll just not do anything with it.
I think that.
They're calling us. Say Baker Tilly's calling.
Explain it to us.
That's okay.
I mean, they can still explain what they're gonna do. I don't see that being an
It's
issue.
okay.
I mean, if
It would still be valuable to know what they're gonna do.
right, I mean, make it for 15,000, doesn't go very far. So,
Okay.
so the next thing.
I have the letter of support for the Ready Grant. I don't know if you want.
I don't know if everybody read, I don't know if everybody's on those emails. Well, with Christine out there, it's gotten Ready Grant for $225,000, and she's from the Ready Committee, and then but we have to commit as a county commit $225,000 matching funds. And the last few years, I look back last year and this year, we had given them $75,000 in their non-reverting account. And So she's looking at the next 3 years to use that 75,000 to match that 225,000. Because I think by the time they get this designed and, get the money, it will be that period of time.
What are they proposing to do? Like what,
I got a copy, I had a copy of the letter too. It's not professional like this one is. You can read it, I've read it here before, got there, so a couple times.
I just didn't know if they were like saying a specific thing that they wanted.
Splash pad, or
And then
she had a couple of different things in there.
that she had turned in with the architect there that's doing the park.
So then we would have to do, since we already did the 75, we would have to do the difference of that with the 125?
No,
It's
Or
just they're non-reverting every year.
They would dedicate 75 for over the next 3 years.
over the next 3 years, okay.
I mean, it's not, I guess I did go back for a few years, but did we always give them 75?
It started out at 50, and then it went to 55, and then it went to 70 and 75. I mean, she's kind of increased it over the last several years.
So they get this 75 from the county and then.
It comes from the park fund, the park operating, and we move it to the park non-reverting every year. That's what non-reverting lives off of, is what you guys move from one fund to the other. But non-reverting is set up mostly for big capital projects. If they need something done with the road or shelter house or playground equipment, they usually use it out of that fund. And they also use that fund for their long-term plan. Every 5 years, they do a
5-year plan.
5-year plan.
So does anybody have any opposition to signing this, or?
I think it's great that, I mean, they've already got a plan that they're gonna use their
So,
non-reverting.
The only thing I can see is if you dedicate 75 for this, you may have to put more in there
If something comes up.
if something else comes up. Because right now, they're pretty much depleting it with the project out there.
Did they do the timber harvest yet? Do you know how much they're gonna get off that?
I don't know anything about timber harvest, so they could get some funds that way,
They're
but
gonna get a little, because there's some white oak on that backside there.
Yeah, I never heard anything else
I don't know
about
what
that.
they do.
I know they, when they cleared some areas for campgrounds, I thought they were gonna salvage those or sell
Yeah, I'm behind there a little bit.
them. Yeah, but I didn't follow that really close, because I was just kind of watching the construction more than what they were gonna do with
Yeah, I
that.
didn't figure it'd be much, but I didn't know if I ever got a number on it.
So have the construction costs stayed within the plan?
they've had 3 change orders, so I think that's like 20,000 more, the 3 total.
I think is the signage, they wanna do better signage, is that part of this Ready grant, do you think, or was that the change? I didn't follow that change order.
I don't really know, I just get the change order with an amount. I don't see the details behind it.
Because with that grant fund, when was that project supposed to be done by?
It's supposed to be finishing up, I think they're getting ready to do a punch list soon,
I thought March.
this end of this year.
I think they had to be done. To get the state funds. So I mean, I guess they're, getting pretty far now, so, they get it, should have enough. I'll sign it.
Mary may not.
No, I guess, that's really all I had. Public comments?
Yeah.
We have any public comments?
He has a public
I do, just
comment.
real quick.
2 hours.
Good.
Put the timer on.
Yeah, put a timer on. Real quick, Mark Notarski. My friends at the Hoosier Environmental Council, I don't know if you're familiar with that, they're holding an event this Saturday, Indiana's Energy Future. And they asked me to give the council the information on it. So if anyone is interested in attending it,
Where's that being held?
It's being held in Bedford. And I know in reading through the, Sandy, you got one of these. Reading through the, what is it, the Center for Rural Engagement, the projects list that they had. I know that Du Bois County Council is a community partner for a climate action plan. I don't know if anything has been established or done yet, but I thought if you had a group or something that was working on that, this may be a good 3-hour session to attend. Pretty informative.
Can you
So
tell me again when it is?
it is Saturday, December 3rd, 9 a.m. to noon Eastern time. Trying to get you another one of those. With you guys. That's all I have.
Can you repeat that about what you had said there, that we're a member of this, or I mean, how did we?
No, you're not a member of it. I was through the Sustaining Hoosier Communities
Okay.
and the rural engagement
Through
group.
Indiana University.
Yeah, it had a whole list, that document has a whole list of different projects,
Okay,
and it has identified in there different community partners. So there's one that says Climate Action Plan, the community partners, the Du Bois County Council, develop a climate action plan for the county, utilize the public school system to educate about climate resiliency, get buy-in from Jasper and Huntingburg mayors.
okay.
All it says on there.
I didn't know that.
I mean, there's a couple other ones, you know, there's one on natural resources, which the community partners, Patoka Lake, smart economic development, which is obviously Du Bois Strong, those type of things. So there's
Thanks for
a
sharing this
long
with us.
laundry list of projects. I'll be attending, so if anyone wants a ride, I'll be
Is
glad
that
to.
the same group that was in Richmond the last time you told us?
No, this is, well, they were part of that group. But that, the Indiana Climate Leadership Summit, it's sponsored by Earth Charter. But all those groups attend it, yeah, like Hoosier Environmental Council and others.
So is this like the Sierra Club for Indiana? Is that close?
Sierra Club is broader than the Hoosier Environmental Council, because Sierra Club, I mean, yeah, there's some overlap there, but they also work together. Yeah, it's-
Okay, well, thank you all. Sir, did you have a comment?
I'm just observing.
Okay, well, thanks for coming this evening. Otherwise, did you have anything, Sandy, additional?
The only thing I wanted to let you guys know that we are receiving an additional $100,000. It's along with the ARPA money, it's the Hoosier Tribal.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. We got 50 of it, we're gonna get the other 50. We have not appropriated it, we don't really have a plan for it, so that's something you guys can think about in the next year when we actually get to the next 50. It's kind of got the same guidelines and the same reporting as the ARPA dollars. I think it's an additional ARPA kind of funding.
Okay.
So
What's it called?
local, it's LATCF, and I didn't bring the right folder.
It was, I saw it in the commissioners.
Something in tribal, it's tribal and community.
The name seemed a little.
I'll email it out to you when I get it. But we did get the 50,000, and we're gonna get the other 50 in the spring, I think. So,
You know, the opioid money, if anybody wants to get their hands on, who will make those decisions, you think, Sandy? Is that?
the only thing I've gotten on that is what account numbers to give it. Other than that, I don't know how much we're getting, and I don't know when it's coming.
I didn't know, it seems like the county council would have to get involved in that.
Everything I've always been told is county funds are under your jurisdiction, so
I mean, the only reason I ask, I know the commissioners had about two other, probably in there, Becky, too, or the people that want, you know, or one.
we've had 2 people come step forward saying they'd like a piece of it, yes.
Okay, if there's, okay, anyone else on the council have any comments or one, I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Figure that out.
So what's going on?
Was it being